Okay. Okay, we're live. Great. So the pasuk begins with this idea of that with all forms of wisdom did she build her house. Chochmot binta beta. Okay, so what's he talking about here? With all forms of wisdom did she build. Now, what's interesting is that the subject of the pasuk over here is chochmot, which means not wisdom, but wisdoms in the plural, right? Not chochma, but chochmot, right? So it's in the plural. But the verb binta, okay, is in the singular. Okay, now why? Because each of these different types of chochmot built her house. Whereas wisdom is in the plural because the Torah encompasses all branches of wisdom. What was created, right? The world is one opinion. Another opinion is that this is talking about the wisdom itself. That refers to both the Torah Sheba'al Peh and the Torah Shebektav, the written and the oral Torah. Therefore, the world was created through the combined power of both of them. You can't have one without the other. Only those people who are engrossed in Torah study, they enable the world to exist. She carved out these 7 pillars. So her house is built on many pillars. 7 is always idiomatic for many. That's what the Rabbag teaches us. And each of which is carved out exactly as the others. Okay, so you have this concept of this metaphor of Shiva, 7 days, right? What is 7 days? 7 days always represents the beginning of the Bria, the creation itself. The entire universe was finished and completed from brought into reality, yesh me'ayin, ex nihilo, right? And it, as a result of these 7 days of creation, the potential of that day that these days brought to fruition is completed its form within 7. So 7 in Judaism represents a complete system. You'll find this idea of 7 all over the place. Most specifically, by the way, you know where? On Friday night. What is Friday night? It's the beginning of the 7th day, Shiva, 7. What do we use on Friday night to initiate our meal? We take out hopefully a nice bottle of Cabernet Sauvignon or some other kind of alcohol or wine that you like, and you make kiddush on wine normally, okay? So why yayin, right? Yayin is, we say yayin, nichnas yayin yotze sod. When the wine comes in, the secrets come out. Yayin in Gematria, right? Every single Hebrew word has a numerical value. Yayin is Yod is 20 and Nun is 50, so that's 70, right? 70, the Maharal says, is the greatest expression of 7. The first time where you see 7 being multiplied to its extent, of course, it's a much bigger number. 7 has an infinite amount of numbers that go after it, but 7D is the greatest expression of the number 7 itself. Okay, so therefore, what is 7? 7 represents transition. You move us from one state to another state, just like the wine has the ability of moving me from one place to another place. Shabbat is the 7th day. What's supposed to happen? It's supposed to transition me from one place to another place. This is why there's 7 branches of wisdom, because the 7 branches of wisdom are supposed to move us from one place to another place. Where else do we see 7? We see 7. Those of you that are married or those of you that have been to weddings, you know that there's something called Sheva Brachot. There's 7 blessings. If you go to an Ashkenazi wedding, you'll see that the custom of the bride is to walk around the Chatan 7 times, right? This concept of 7 is about moving us from one state to another state. On Friday night, it's meant to move us out of the work week into the Shabbat, out of the chaos of the regular week into the holiness of the Sabbath. So we use 7 as a transitionary number, moving us from one place to another place. And over here, in this pasuk over here, we see this idea expressing itself over here as well. That she builds her house on wisdom, chochmot binta beta, chatzvat budeh shiva, and she carved it out of 7 pillars. Right? There's another idea over here that Rashi says, which is interesting. Rashi says that this 7 represents not the 5 books of Moses, but, spoiler alert, there are actually 7 books of Moses. That's right, 7 books of Moses. And the other 2 books are found in the book of Bamidbar. Okay, there's different ways of splitting up the 5 books of Moses. Of course, it's 5 complete books, but there are different small book endings in the books themselves which gets us to 7. And it's a continuation of this idea of these 7 pillars of wisdom. There are 7 pillars of the world are judgment, right? What are the 7 pillars of the world? You have judgment, you have truth, you have peace, you have kindness, you have law, you have justice, and you have bina, understanding. So 7 is this idea of these complete systems, moving us from one place to another place. Pasuk continues, Tivcha, Tivcha, Mischei Yayena. She prepared, literally, she slaughtered, she has meat for you, right? You want some steaks or you want some shawarma, and she mixes her meat with her wine. Okay, and she sets her table. The term Tavcha means both to slaughter, and Tavcha also means to cook. She mixed her wine, since it was very customary back in the time to dilute their wine with water. You saw this, the Ben Ish Chai says this, also the minhag for the Iraqi Jews and those people that follow the Ben Ish Chai is to add 3 drops of water into your wine on Friday night. We don't necessarily do it with our wine today because our wine is already watered down. The wine that we use is not as strong as the wine that was offered in the past. But there's this idea that you wanted to dilute it because the wine specifically is because of the Churban Beit HaMikdash, and therefore you want to dilute it. So it's the Zecher Churban HaMikdash. Now, this is going to continue the metaphor of creation. The pasuk over here refers to the creation of all solids and liquids. That's according to Rashi. However, that's based on the Gemara in Sanhedrin. It also says over there that it refers to the oceans and the rivers and all the needs of the world. The whole entire world is nourished because we have water on planet Earth, and that's what this pasuk is talking about over here. However, the Malbim over here has a very different interpretation. He says that meat refers to wisdom. Okay, and those of you that are carnivorous, you'll appreciate this, that just as food sustains the body, wisdom spiritually sustains the heart. Why? It sustains the heart by not allowing it to make poor decisions. It sustains the heart by not allowing it to give into its evil inclinations, its evil influences. Wine refers to understanding, to bina, because it has the ability to expound and gain new knowledge. It gladdens the heart. It allows you to see things from a different perspective. Now, obviously, we're not talking about too much wine. There's just the right amount of wine. Those of you who drink wine understand exactly what I'm talking about. It's that little bit of buzz you get before you can take it to. That's that right place of drinking wine that helps you see things from a different perspective. And therefore, wisdom has all sorts of ability of enhancing our ability of seeing things, and just like wine has that ability itself, that's what the yain over here, this mixture of meat and wine, is talking about. Shulcha na'artea tikra al gape mirma karet. We're talking over here where she sends out her young maidens, and she announces in the wings of the cities, of the heights of the wings. We're talking about the high places in the city over here, right? The city where birds soar. People with wisdom announce their knowledge at high places so that they can be heard from afar. This is very true, meaning ultimately people that have tremendous wisdom always want to share it. Someone who is super smart, who has so much information, always wants to be in a position where he or she is able to share that wisdom with other people. Okay, Rashi, however, says that this idea over here of nerotea, the maidens, is a complete metaphor again, right? And it's either talking about over here of Adam and Chava, right? Because it's an analogy to creation, or some say that it is an analogy to Moshe and Aharon. It's a metaphor to the Torah itself, where wisdom sends the messengers to bring the words to others. Like, no one can attain Torah wisdom on their own. He has to learn it from the sage and the prophets, from the teacher. This is why every single Gemara, if you open up any book of Talmud, any Talmud, always starts on page number bet. There is no page aleph. And the reason why there's no page aleph is because page aleph has to come from your Rebbe. It has to come from your teacher. It has to come from your mentor. If you want to be able to partake in wisdom, the feast of wisdom, it has to come from the sages, the prophets, the teachers that come before us. Another way of understanding the word nerotea is that homiletically it means youthfulness, right? The way to strengthen the cause of Torah against the onslaught of temptation is by investing in the enthusiasm that we have, the enthusiasm, the vitality, The Zohar writes says that that sin thrives in a heart that is old, right? What does that mean to be old? Old means that you're stuck in your ways. You're not changing. You are who you are. You're the kind of person that sees the world in a particular way, and there's only one way to see it. And that type of mentality doesn't allow one to appreciate the fine nuances of the world. That person is devoid of all kinds of wisdom. When we talk about the excitement of Torah study and the desire to achieve a deeper and broader understanding, when you have that type of a philosophy, it gives you the power to overcome all kinds of negative inclinations that we may have. So the Mishlei is very clear that in order for you to go ahead and use wisdom, not wisdom for the sake of wisdom, meaning some people think that the reason why you learn is because you want to get a degree so you could learn more and get more degrees. But in Judaism, the concept of education is so that it evolves your character. So you become a greater human being, that you become someone who is able to see the world from different perspectives, but more importantly, to see yourself from different perspectives, to see that you can be a greater human being, that your current mindset, your current attitudes don't define your future, that you could become a greater human being, that you have the ability of refining what you are into something much more brilliant than wherever you are. So Pasuk continues, Mipeti Yasur Henna. Whoever is a simpleton, let that person turn here. So who should come and study and become wise? Someone without the sense to prepare his own meal should come here and eat from my bread and wine. Meaning, if you don't have the clarity, whoever's simple, all you got to do is go out and figure out a way of feeding yourself. The information is there, the understanding, the wisdom is all there, but you have to be willing to go out and recognize that you are lacking. Meaning, if you don't feel hunger, how are you going to go out and find food, right? Whoever is a simpleton, let that person turn here. You should come and study and become wise. That's how Rashi understands it. Chaser lev amra lo. As for he who lacks an understanding heart, you say that simpleton is a simple person who wants to do the right thing, but he's so easily distracted. He's got ADD. He has a hard time focusing. He's easily enticed. But once that person can be persuaded to turn here, right, to turn to wisdom, to turn to the Torah, they will ultimately find the tov, the good, right? One who lacks an understanding heart, right? That person is, just exposing to that person to a little bit of Torah is good, but it's not enough. That person, you have to go ahead and do everything you can to be sympathetic to that person, do everything you can to make that person be receptive to the message, but ultimately to have a lacking understanding, a lacking heart, it's not enough. By the way, Mincha will be upstairs in the main synagogue.
Thank you.
No worries. According to the Malbim, he says that the simple person over here, this person that lacks knowledge, is we're teaching this person how to resist evil, right? Someone who lacks an understanding heart, right, has wisdom, but lacks the willpower to control his evil inclination. And that's a whole other animal. Willpower and knowledge are two separate things. How many of us are guilty of knowing exactly what we should be doing, what we ought to be doing, but somehow we fall into the traps of making the same mistakes over and over again? So, for example, that those cookies on the counter are really bad for you, but every single time you pass it, you're like, let me just have one more cookie, right? Let me just take one more. And you really should be going for the carrots or the celery. But the difference is that the carrots and the celery are in the fridge. It takes a lot more effort and energy to find those things. So willpower is part and parcel of having chokhmah, meaning having wisdom without having the drive to do the right thing is also kind of pointless. I know people that are so brilliant. They know Shas backwards and forward. They're brilliant people. They understand, they have all the wisdom, but they don't have the willpower to apply it. In Judaism, it's not enough to know information. It's also about how we apply the information. It's about how we go ahead and we bring this wisdom and make it practically as we can, so we could live a life of wisdom, not just be individuals that carry wisdom, but actually we practice the wisdom. This is what Rav Wolbe says is the difference between Aristotle and Abraham. He says that Abraham, and Aristotle, they're both philosophers, both very intelligent people, both had a philosophy, both had students. The difference between them two is the fact that Abraham's ideologies are still practiced today and Aristotle's are not. And he cites the major difference between the two is that Aristotle saw wisdom as an external thing from himself, right? Okay, I'm a philosopher, but I don't have to live by my philosophical principles. Whereas Abraham understood that it's not enough to go ahead and just to be someone who believes in a God, a monotheistic God. In order for you to go ahead and to believe in a monotheistic God, it has to transform your essence, your being, which is why I believe Abraham embodied this midah of chesed. He embodied the midah of chesed because he saw that if there is a God in the world, the only reason why he created the universes was an act of kindness and giving. And if this is how and why God, creates the world, then he needs to embody this kindness in himself. So it's not enough to know the information. How do we transcend the information from, wisdom and knowledge up here and then move it down into the heart so we're motivated to become something bigger and better? This is what ultimate Torah learning is about. Just knowing the information, which is what schools do very well. They get us to know the information, but to live it is a whole other animal. And I believe that's what the pasuk over here is talking about. Lechu lachmu balachmi ushtui biyen masachti. Come, take of my food and drink of my wine that I have mixed. If you don't have any food, come here and enjoy my bread, right? Enjoy my wine. In other words, the Torah's wisdom is a delightful. It enlightens. It does everything it can to go ahead and to satiate that hunger. And this is true. Anyone who has spent any time in real learning understands that you walk away from that learning experience a different human being. You feel a sense of completion. You feel wholesomeness. You feel like I'm satiated on some level. But we distract ourselves. It's like, the body has, over the last 5,000 years, evolved into always feeling that there's not enough nutrients in the world. There's not enough food in the world. So it rewards you for eating very poor foods, like eating all the junk food. The reason why you're constantly gravitate to that is because your body believes on a subconscious level that there's not enough food at that. There's not enough resources out there. So it'll reward you for having the candy bar. It'll reward you for having the ice cream. It'll reward you for having the potato chips. But you don't need that food. You could live on carrots, and there's enough olive oil out there, enough avocados out there for you to get your healthy fats and the proper nutrients and everything else that you need to do that is right. But unfortunately, we are living in a time where we're distracted, and the body itself tells us that we need more things, but we need to grow beyond that. This is where Chokhmah leads us to. Chokhmah is more of this understanding that I am achieving wisdom for the sake of evolving and becoming something bigger and better and greater. This is exactly what Shlomo Melech is trying to tell us. The Chavetz Chaim tells us something very powerful over here. He says that bread is always a metaphor for Torah, right? Bread provides sustenance for the body. Torah provides sustenance for the soul. Therefore, a person's attitude towards his Torah, his limud HaTorah, should always parallel his attitude towards food. Just like you make sure to eat at least once a day, just like you make sure to go ahead and find the nutrients that you need, someone should also go ahead and make sure that every single day he has some kind of limud HaTorah. He needs to go ahead and maintain his physical health, he also needs to be involved in maintaining his spiritual health. But someone who fasts for a long time, right, what happens? He ends up not feeling any hunger. That person ends up becoming very weak. That person always gets in some kind of trouble. And the same is true in the spiritual reality. In the spiritual reality, if you are not involved in your limud, every single day that you are not pushing yourself and growing and developing yourself intellectually and spiritually, you are taking, Chachamim say, 3 steps backwards. For every day of growth that you do, you are taking 3 steps backwards, and you are losing your ability to achieve a level of continuity and greatness. Just like bread is not a seudah on its own, you need to put other things in there, right? Wine is also not enough. You need to go ahead and mix things up. You need to go ahead and have other things. So learning one kind of thing and not adding other things to it is a mistake. Do everything you can to try to add as much flavor to your learning. right? If it's just not enough to have one class, mix it up, do something else. It's not enough to go ahead and hear one kind of a speaker. Find other speakers. Try to keep being proactively involved in finding what you need to develop yourself. Never rest. Just like hunger forces you to get up and go out and find something else. You know, if lunchtime comes around, you're like thinking, what am I going to eat for lunch today? And you start going back and forth. Am I having meat? Am I having dairy? And if I'm having dairy, what kind of dairy am I having? Am I having fish? Am I having carbs? Am I not having carbs today? Am I having meat? What kind? Am I having chicken? You start going through the whole thing, and then it takes you whatever it is. And by the time your food arrives, you're just ready to scarf it down. It's that kind of drive for wisdom that we need to kind of bring into our own lives. It doesn't happen on its own. It's something that you need to develop for yourselves. He says over here, "Izvu pitaim v'chiyu v'ashru b'derech mina." Leave your paths, simpletons, and live and stride in the way of understanding. Okay, what does Rashi say? He says, "Pitaim is foolishness, right? Wisdom." Oh, so you're getting on my class over there. You're right over here. Oh, okay, fine. Sorry, I just have someone here who just logged in and I'm looking right at them. There's some people here in the Beit Knesset. Anyway, so where was I? So he says wisdom is foolishness. Not pitaim. Oh, sorry, pitaim is foolishness, and wisdom addresses the guest. If you want to enjoy my foods, you have to be willing to forsake your foolishness. If you immerse yourself in a Torah environment, you frequent her study hall, you warm yourself with the insights and the ideas of Torah scholars, you walk towards happiness upon the path of understanding, and you will find everything that you need. Right? This is what Shlomo HaMelech is trying to impart to us. He's trying to impart to us this idea that if you are truly interested in developing a deep relationship with wisdom, you got to build and create a hunger within inside of you, right? You got to build that drive inside of you, and if you are able to build that drive inside of you, you will find yourselves staring at success. And the success that I'm talking about is obtaining wisdom, but not wisdom for the sake of carrying wisdom, but a wisdom that transcends the self into something bigger and better, much greater. It's we shed our foolishness behind, and we become people of wisdom. How do we do this? I often get that question. How do I actually become wise? So there's two ways of doing it. Most people make a mistake when they think about growing. They think that the way we grow is by, pointing out the negative traits that we have and ignore those traits, right? Stop doing the bad things. I think this is a very bad strategy. The way in which you truly can grow is by creating a vision of who you truly are. Meaning, I'll give you an example. Some guy says he wants to quit smoking. So the problem is with most smokers is that they identify with being a smoker first. Right? I have a friend who's a smoker, and he told me he's not a quitter. He's never going to quit smoking, right? So I said to him, your problem is, his name is Chuck. I said, Chuck, your problem is that you identify yourself with being a smoker that wants to quit. I said, if you really want to stop smoking, you have to first recognize that you are not a smoker. First, clarify who you are. First, clarify what it means to be the best version of you, and then become that person. Right? If someone who doesn't smoke because you're not a smoker, eventually smoking will lose its interest. Right? It's first creating a vision of who you are, what you want to be, who you're meant to be, what you're not, and then living that becomes so much easier. Let's go through this last two psukim over here, and then I gotta run up and catch a mincha. He says over here, when you give rebuke to a wise man, he will love you. Why? Because he wants to refine his character, and he wants to learn from everyone. This is so true. I had a neighbor in Israel who was from. He lived in Bnei Brak, and he was living in an Anglo community in Israel where we lived. And he's like, I love it here. It's so beautiful. The air is so clean in Jerusalem, but I can't live here. I said, why? He said, because no one has come to my home and has pointed out anything that I've done wrong. I'm like, well, isn't that a good thing? Like, do you want to live in a place where neighbors are coming in and saying you're doing things wrong? He's like, yes. He's like, I do. I said, why? He's like, because I want to be the best version of me. And if I live in a neighborhood where no one really cares about who I am and what I do, he's like, how am I going to grow? He says, a good neighbor is someone who cares enough to come and tell you, I love you, you're doing something wrong. This is the right way to do it. But it's all about an attitude, right? My attitude back then was like, don't give me any criticism, just focus on all the things that I do well. But that's the wrong attitude. Someone who truly wants to find wisdom is someone who's willing to hear the rebuke. Someone who doesn't have a fragile ego and is willing to hear the criticism so that he or she can become a better, greater human being. This is what it means. Ten lechacham v'chabe od. Give wisdom to a wise man, and he will become wiser. Because a person who is looking for wisdom, it doesn't matter how it comes. It doesn't matter what the medium is and how it's being given. He's just looking for wisdom, and with that, he will achieve wisdom. Wishing you all a great night. May you be blessed with the recognition that you are people of wisdom. You're not some guy who's a simpleton who's trying to become wise. You are wise. Now go find it. Have a great night. Have a great week. Looking forward to seeing you next. Shabbat Tov, everybody. Thanks for coming in.